most startup businesses that want to keep growing, like they have this mentality, like you have to keep growing and growing, growing to get big to survive. Otherwise, you'll die. But I think Bitcoin allows you to stay small and like lean and agile. You don't have to like scale like to these crazy levels, or you can stay a small or medium sized business. Hold on to your Bitcoin. Keep it in a cold storage or safe wallet, and then you can use that to raise more capital for your business, raise more value, issue more shares, raise more money, and stay in business. And that's the end goal, right? You want to stay in business.
When you look at a lot of those crypto podcasts where their mouths are open and it's like, Bitcoin to a million or whatever.
Well, they're like shocked face, like
Oh, here we go. We'll do it for the thumbnail.
there's like a fire going on in the background, or like an explosion or something
But
crazy.
it works though.
Keep 'em cold till I'm old. I don't plan to blow my load. Wallet so blue, if you know, you know. It's better than bonds, better than gold. Finna reap up what I sow. Fiat money can't keep up, it gets sold. How many times you been told? DCA's the way to go. Higher highs, higher lows. Every year my network grows. Every day my network grows. Running relays, running nodes. Yeah. Dollar a day's a minimum. Stats, zap sats. Any Fiat I get, I'm flipping them.
Alex Irizarry,
Yes,
welcome to Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, and really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So we've connected through Sovreign.
Yes.
I think it was either in the Slack messages, or I think I did one of the office hours or something.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to have you here on the podcast. Can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Alex Irizarry. I am a Bitcoin consultant for Sovreign. Been there for a handful of months, and basically we help businesses adopt Bitcoin as part of their businesses. So that could mean a lot of things for many different businesses, but I think we're first and foremost we're an education company, because with
Yeah.
Bitcoin it's you have to understand it first, and then adoption comes after. So it's a big focus on education, helping clients through their Bitcoin journey. Whether they're just starting out and don't know anything about Bitcoin, or that
Yeah.
they kind of know a little more about it, and they're just trying to figure out the best way to kind of allocate it or kind of incorporate it into their business. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of me in a nutshell. But yeah.
Yeah, I like talking with you guys from Sovreign. I think you're the fourth person from Sovreign on the podcast. There was Joe McGee, Ed Garone, or Giron, as I say, Daniel Frank, and now you're here. So
Yes.
welcome,
Thank you.
Sovreign
Yeah.
family.
That's a continuing the Sovereign tradition, and I think I did watch some of those other episodes. I feel like it's so long ago, but I did. I wanted to
Yeah,
see what they talked about, and their story. And it's even though that they're part of Sovereign, you don't get all the full details of like their background and their full story unless you have like a conversation like we're having. So it's always nice to get to know your other Sovereign consultants more on a deep level too, versus like, oh well, you're a Bitcoin consultant, you're from Chicago or from New York or wherever. Okay, that's that's cool.
yeah, exactly. So it's funny because I don't hear that much about Chicago with respect to Bitcoin. So I'd like to know your Bitcoin origin story.
Yeah, my Bitcoin origin story, sure, that's an interesting one. It's lots of ups and downs, but we'll kind of go through it, and feel free to stop me along the way if there's anything interesting, any nuggets. But I first heard about Bitcoin in late 2017. I think the price was spiking around 19,000 around the time,
Wait,
and
19,000 was like a big deal back then. Do you remember like the mania?
it was. Yeah, I was like, oh, it's spiking, it's going crazy. It's a speculative asset. The block and then the block size wars were kind of going on at the time. So there was so much FUD around the time, and it's crazy to see how far we've come even in that time frame. But like, oh, it's the price is going up, and that's what most people care about. And with Bitcoin, unfortunately, it's, oh well, price goes
Yeah.
up, and my value goes up. Um, so I first heard about it in 2017. It was prices going crazy, um, and I had a small like retail investment portfolio at the time with a handful of stocks from money that I had saved up from previous from working my previous jobs. So nothing crazy, handful of stocks, small little investment retail account. And I heard about Bitcoin, and I was like, I dismissed it. I was I was wrong about it. I bought into the FUD like everyone was saying it's going to crash. It's a speculative asset. It's not going to be adopted.
The
You know,
tulips. I
it,
heard
it's
that
a
a lot back
tulip.
then
Yeah,
too.
the tulip. It's crazy internet money. It's for scammers. I'm trying to think of all the other things that I heard at the time, and I kind of bought into it. It was like, oh yeah, well, okay, it's going up, but it's going to crash and go to zero, and a few years, no one, we won't hear about it, and no, no one will be talking about it again. So obviously, I was wrong about that. And then maybe fast forward about a year later, or maybe 6 months or a year later. Um, let's see. We kind of wanted to take my investment portfolio account, and I kind of wanted to make the shift from like working my job to like entrepreneurship. So I started learning more about like starting a business or running a business. I just started listening to more podcasts and financial experts or people who have done it, who are successful entrepreneurs. I'm trying to avoid the financial experts, but people that who were
Yeah.
in the game, like
Yep.
done it many years. Like so, one of the examples was Robert Kiyosaki, from Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he has always talks about like why go to school, get a job, and and pay money and pay taxes on your money. The rich people don't work for money. That was his number one lesson, and they buy hard assets. So he was always very drilled that message down. Um, and so I kind of like, okay, maybe I missed something. And then I remember specifically my wife and I watched Shark Tank a lot back then to get inspired by like business ideas. Okay, like
Yeah.
how do we start a business? How does that even work? And how do we get funding? Just to get inspired. And I remember one of the episodes was Bundle. I think it was in like late 2018 from Dimitri Love. They're no longer around anymore, but basically, I don't know if you've ever watched Shark Tank. Have you ever seen?
No.
Yeah.
I've heard about it, and I know. I think is it Kevin O'Leary?
Yeah, Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah.
He's one of them.
Who's
Like with Mark
Canadian?
Cuban. Yeah, Mark Cuban, Kevin O'Leary. Some of these big time investors, they basically they listen to small business pitches and then they decide if they wanted to invest or not. Is basically the
Okay.
show. And one of them was Bundle, and I was like, and it was a Bitcoin company, and it basically took your transactions and
Oh
it rounded
wow.
up your spare change to get Bitcoin. They're no longer around anymore, but that's kind of I was like, oh, I heard about it again. I was like, okay, maybe I got something wrong here, and let me go back under the hood and let me go back and see what I missed the first time around. So that took about a year later, and I think that's when I kind of started doing more research and really understanding. Okay, maybe there's something more to here. That's not a tulip. Like the price crashed to like back to like around 4 to 5 thousand, but that's what the price was a year ago. So it's like it's not dead. It's not. I was like, okay, maybe look deeper here. So that's kind of when I had it was just like a slow aha moment, and then I was like, oh my God, this is this is like this. There's something here to it, and then I think a few months later, I first started with using that bundle app. I started with like $20, I think, or whatever, a very small amount. I'm like, okay, let me just buy a little Bitcoin to see what happens. And I got started with that bundle app, and I was like, okay. I bought a little Bitcoin. I held on to it for a few months. I kept checking the price like over and over again, even though I had like
Yeah.
the tiniest amount of Bitcoin. It
Yeah,
was like,
but it's like that's the thing, like skin in the game we say. But even if it's just a tiny amount, your brain something happens, a shift happens, and then you start checking the price, and then that leads to something else.
yeah, almost obsessively. Even though I had like it was like $100 at the time. I was like, I gotta check the price to make sure is it going up or is it dead. I'm like,
Yep.
okay. Didn't have a little time preference. So, and then yeah, I think about a 6 months or a year later is when I kind of doing more research. I bought the Bitcoin Standard. I started doing more research about other people that were talking about Bitcoin. Not just Bitcoin, but like commodities and other investments. Like gold and stuff. And I'm like, I think you had mentioned it in one of your like the Max Kaiser report. He was also kind of mentioned as one of the okay, there's gold, commodity, and Bitcoin. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to buy gold. I'm not going to buy I'm not going
Yeah.
to buy any commodities. I can't even if I bought a gold bar, how would I even know it's real? Or like, I don't even I
Yeah.
don't even know how to validate it, right? It could look real to me, but it's like, oh, let me look at Bitcoin. So yeah, and then about a year later after that, I converted my small little investment portfolio. It was like a few $1,000s at the time, and I converted it all to Bitcoin, and that's when I was continuing to check the price. And then at the same time, I kind of when I had that orange pill aha moment, I tried to like orange pill all my friends and family, like you gotta look
Yeah.
at Bitcoin, and maybe too much. I kind of maybe that was one of the mistakes. Is like when you have that internal aha moment, you kind of like want to tell everybody and running screaming.
Yeah.
You're like, who's this crazy guy talking? Like it's
Yeah. Look, there he is. Run.
yeah, like it's just scam. Like all the things, or the all like the concerns you had about it, going through it personally, like they have the same things, like or like they raise the same concerns, but you're like, oh, don't worry about that. Just do research, and most of the time they don't. They like they read the headlines, that they see the volatility, they see the drops, or they might have bought it like at like the top of like the 2017,
Yeah.
21, and like, oh, well, how much higher can it go? It's already at 100. What are we at now? 110,000, like whatever, and like it's right next to the all-time high, but then people still like it's, oh well, it's already hit its peak. How much higher can it go? It's
Yeah.
so.
I kind of had that in 2017. I think the number that really stood out to me was like 17,000. And I was like, whoa. And then I thought, this is probably the peak, like there's no way it's going to go higher than 17,000. And lo and behold, it does, because it's Bitcoin. It's scarce. It does what
Yeah.
Bitcoin does when you least expect it sometimes. So,
Yeah.
and I just want to comment because I was very much like you. As soon as it hit, you tell like everyone, and people are like, just please stop.
Everyone.
But I think I would like to say, and maybe someone apologize, because I guess I forget what my sort of skepticism felt like back in the day, because I went through all of the stages and I understand, and time has helped me to understand even further. So it's hard to like remember what it's like before the aha moment.
Yeah, like you're very skeptical going into it. Like even I think most Bitcoiners, or even people that are into Bitcoin now, like they get Bitcoin wrong at some point in their journey, whether it's right
Yeah.
away or they get into altcoins. Luckily I didn't, shit coins, or whatever you want to call it. But luckily I didn't do that. But it's or what there's always some type of mistake you make with Bitcoin, whether it's custody
Yeah.
or just learning about it, or how to use it. Yeah, so it's always interesting to see. I'm like, well, Bitcoin is for everybody. Not everyone uses it the same way. Same with
Yeah.
retail or businesses. So it's important to understand. Like it's like I look at the adoption curve of like all these technologies. I think a good one, maybe for the younger generations, like the adoption curve of like the internet or whatever, any new
Yeah.
technology. It's like
Yep.
it's if you look at like the adoption curve, and you tie that to Bitcoin, like we're right on track. But if you tell someone 20 or 30 years ago that everyone's going to be living on the internet and social media is going to be a big thing and streaming is going to be a huge thing, and they'll just look at you like you're a nut job and you're
Right.
crazy. Oh, it's never going to catch on. Everyone wants to go to Blockbuster and rent their movies in person.
Remember Blockbuster? Like, what is that? Like, what is that today?
Oh my God. Do they even exist anymore? There was like one store left in like the entire state or a few years ago. I don't even know if they're around anymore. But I remember as a kid going there because I love playing video games, and it was like a thing going to Blockbuster on the weekends, and like, oh, let's go rent the latest game or movie, and you'd always have a certain amount of time to bring it back. And oh, what happens if you don't return the game back or in like 5 days or whatever? You get a big fee. And I'm like, okay. And then I remember my dad. He kind of got it. He signed up for Netflix pretty early on, but this is when you would still mail in like the physical like
Oh, okay. Yeah.
these were like the physical copies of like the digital media. And I'm like, what is he? Why is he even doing this? And then, and then he likes to try new things, I guess. But yeah, then it's just funny that, and then now it's like everything's streaming and digital, a hyper digital world. And I think that's why maybe the younger generations understand Bitcoin easier, or they get Bitcoin easier because they're kind of forced to live in this hyper digital world where it's like maybe some of the more traditional conservative folks or business owners, they're kind of more hesitant to adapt the latest technology, or okay, why change something that's not broken or whatever. whatever
I
they can,
mean,
whatever their hest may be. Yeah.
yeah, I mean the mindset is different, and it kind of makes sense, because when you are an entrepreneur, your number one priority is to, I guess, remain a going concern to ensure that your business keeps going. And so, if something is working and you don't feel the direct threat, then you are reluctant to change because you don't have like the government or mommy and daddy there to bail you out. Like it's all on you. So I think it's a good segue into what is it like to have these discussions with business owners?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I kind of what I mentioned earlier is every business owner has kind of on their own journey, so you
Yeah.
kind of have to ask like the right questions now. It's like okay, like and usually the couple of questions that I ask are okay, how much do you know about Bitcoin so far? Like, do you know anything about Bitcoin, or do I have to explain like what a cryptocurrency is, or like have they done some level of research? Do they know enough about where they can buy it or where they can purchase it, and they're just trying to figure out, do I use Bitcoin as a strategic reserve to kind of manage my cash
Yeah.
flows to to raise more equity or issue more debt or to raise more value for my company from a public company perspective, or if you're like a smaller to medium sized company, small mom and pop shop, maybe it's just accepting payments, doing like a small um, um, partnering with a small vendor and just accepting payments,
Yeah.
or just getting like a cold wallet, and storing some of those storing some of that offline, um, or figuring out a multi-sig solution if you have multiple business owners.
Yep.
Maybe it makes more sense to do multi-sig. So it's really okay. It's understanding how much have they done research before,
Yeah.
and like where are they trying to go, because one
Yeah.
of the discussions was like, Bitcoin is can't really save everybody. It's like it's not this life raft. Like if your business is on its last legs, and if you have like a 3 month or 6 month runway, then Bitcoin is probably not. It's not going to save your business. Like it's a long term play. Like if you have probably, let's say, like 12 months of runway or longer,
Yep.
then that's your goal, is like, and then start small. I think that's another big thing, is like um, business owners or just people in general think, okay, I want to get into Bitcoin, but they have to go like full Bitcoin maxi. I'm like, no, you don't have to.
No,
You
don't do
don't have to
that.
do that. Like start small. Like even if it's 1 to 5% allocation, whether that's
Yep.
$100, 1,000, or 10,000, whatever the size your business is, and how much risk tolerance you're looking to handle. Start small. Start with 1%. And then see where it goes. It's not going to go
Yep.
to zero. It's not. You're not going to lose
Yeah.
all your money. And then I
It's
think
like a new product or service. You test, and then based on the results and stuff, how you can manage, like then you move forward and you develop a plan. Like business owners, entrepreneurs, you already have so many things to do. Your time is already very scarce. The last thing you want is to like go all in and then like not be able to sleep at night because you're stressed because there's something you don't understand yet.
Yeah, and I think just going all in is probably more risky than not fully understanding it than allocating some amount. But I think on the flip side, it's like maybe this year or later this year, it's like we're hitting an inflection point where it's going to be a higher opportunity cost to not own any
Yeah.
Bitcoin, like whether it's a small allocation to your retail account or to your business. It's going to be a higher opportunity cost to be on zero than to have no Bitcoin, than to have a 0% to get off zero, right? It's a
Yeah.
higher risk than to not own Bitcoin, than to own Bitcoin. So,
Yeah.
so I think we're
So
getting
what
we're getting
is
closer.
what does adoption look like in Chicago?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I would say, maybe me personally, I thought it would come along sooner, but maybe it's like it's small pockets. I mean, I go to the Chicago Bitcoin devs meetups, and like once a
Oh,
month.
nice.
And that's kind of more of like a technical discussion. It's like some of the more the engineers or the developers who work on Bitcoin Core. They kind of talk about, like, it's a very technical discussion, which is
Yeah.
kind of right up my alley. But I'm more like I think you might have mentioned like a super user, so I can understand what they're talking
Yeah.
about. Like in terms of like how to like improve the code, or like suggestions. I'm like, okay, I don't really know, but like, what is it supposed to be doing, like from a functional
Yeah.
perspective? And I think it's funny because I think I brought it up in one of the conferences about, or the meetups, I brought it up. I was like, well, what happens if the Bitcoin Core developers don't agree on a new feature implementation? And this is before the whole. This is before.
The op return.
Yeah, and I'm like, they're like, oh, we'll take it by case, but usually, there's discussion, and it's handled, it's figured out, and that's before the whole, um, I think the
Op
whole,
return.
yeah, the op return, the big fiasco is like, okay, and my thought is that is okay, well, it's like, okay, what's good for the miners, but also I think what incentives can we put in place? I think that was one of your questions to help small miners or people who run nodes, like who don't really have a say in like what goes into the Bitcoin core into the code. I think maybe there's room for opportunity there. Like it's because
Yeah. See, I always thought that node runners do have a say with whether they update the software. Now that Luke Dash Jr. is running Knots, there's another implementation available. I forget the name of the other one I saw a few years ago, but I feel as though node runners, they don't have a huge say, but they kind of do in what they choose, which rules they choose to accept.
yeah, I think that's a good point. I think running the knots is a good example. Is like okay, well they don't agree with like the direction of Bitcoin Core is going, but they can kind of run knots. Um, so that's a great example of like okay, what leverage they do have. But like I think I was watching a podcast or something. What Andres Giannapas was talking about. He had stood up like a node for a while, and it's like a full node where you can download the full copy of like
Yeah,
the
that's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
okay. So, and it's like it takes a lot of your data, and I think, I run a small mining machine in the basement, and one of the one of the core developers when I went to the meetups, I brought an old laptop machine. He's like, hey, bring your old laptop. I can help you set up a node, and he helped me kind of repurpose an old laptop to run a node in my basement. And then I also had the mining machine, but I kind of had to pick and choose because of the bandwidth and the power. I was like,
Yep.
do I run a node or do I run a mining machine? And my wife's like, where's all this power going? Like, you're gonna
What are you
share
doing?
yeah, what are you doing to like? What are you plugging all these machines in? Like, because it's pretty loud in the basement. And
Yeah.
um, so she's like,
That's so real, right? That is like real talk, like real trade-offs that you have to make.
yeah. So I was like, because he helped me. I kind of felt bad too. He did a good amount of work to help me set up this node, and then I set up the mining machine, and basically our our home setup couldn't handle both. So I'm like, oh, well, I can't do
Yeah.
both. Well, let me just run the mining machine and make a little Bitcoin. It's more like a novelty item than a profits because it always costs more energy than to run it. But I wanted to learn about mining. Like I bought it a couple
Yeah.
years ago. I bought a cheap miner, it was an Antminer S9 off of eBay for like 150 bucks, and it's like a
Oh
plug and
wow.
play, pretty cheap older model, in decent shape, and it's been running in the basement for a couple years now. It's always funny. I always can tell when like the power goes out or like something's wrong with it because like you can kind of hear like the power turning up. I was like, oh, check my app. What's wrong with the Bitcoin mining machine? The power out? Like what's going on? So
You know, like in today's climate, I would say for a new person, any person that's new to Bitcoin and that's interested, I would highly recommend that they try just setting up a node and stuff. Of course, pruned nodes are available. They don't take up that much space. But if it is possible to download everything, that's even better because it gives you more opportunity to explore and experiment and stuff. But it is getting more expensive. It's getting more complicated to be able to do it. Like a few years ago, you could just have like a Raspberry Pi and you're good to go. But now it's like it's like you have to start investing properly in your equipment.
yeah, it's becoming more costly to run a node. I think you have one, is right? Do you run a BitX or what do you run?
Yeah, I've got a BitX,
Okay.
and so I got this like a month ago, a month and a half,
How was
and
setting that up? Like,
so basically, so far I've got plug and play. So it didn't take time at all. What was complicated for me was opening the box, and then because we had the fiber optic cable
okay.
set up. And so our whole like internet installation changed and the Wi-Fi code changed. And so it took me more time to open the box and find the Wi-Fi code because I hid it somewhere than it did to like actually, get it up and running. And like, it's very user friendly. The interface is really cool. But what
Yeah.
I'm trying to do, so I had an old laptop. I got the battery switched out because the battery was dead. I bought an external hard drive, and now I'm downloading. I'm synchronizing the blockchain from scratch. Absolutely everything is coming in, and so that like the like it's very big, and my internet is not that great clearly because I've been synchronizing now for like it's like 2.5 weeks now, and I'm at
Still
80%.
synchronizing?
It's still synchronizing,
Oh my
and so
God.
yeah, and all of this why? Because I want to experiment with knots, number one. And number two, I want to try datum to see what it's like to construct a mining template, because one of the sort of insights from this whole op return discussion, this debate, disagreement, whatever you want to call it, that I read about and I find fascinating is that perhaps the problem doesn't have to do with the code itself, i.e., the core devs can't really propose anything to prevent spam because people find ways around.
Right.
So, like, non-monetary transactions can get submitted directly to, a large miner. We all know that mining is more or less centralized because there are very few mining pools. And
Right.
so in an article I read, one thing that was brought to the attention of the reader is that perhaps the problem is actually mining centralization as opposed to the op return limit. So it sounds like a cool theory. I don't know, but I need to test and experiment. And so I have to go through this process so I can actually like see what it's like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's interesting, and I think I would agree. Yeah, I think like it's mining is very centralized. So like, if anyone wanted to get involved in Bitcoin mining who's not involved, like it'd be very you'd have to spend a lot of money on and time and on equipment to get
Yeah.
set up. Assuming you want to even compete with like the larger miners, like you would spend so much money just trying to compete, and I don't think like the
Oh,
risk
yeah.
reward trade-off would be like in terms of like the transactions you actually mine for your for some of those inputs that you're grabbing would be different. So yeah,
Yeah. And I
let me
mean,
know how that goes.
yeah, well, I mean, maybe in like another month or something. But it's really not about profitability. Like the idea that perhaps if everyone, okay, this is like super naive and stuff, but in theory, if everyone on the planet or half the planet were to run like a bidaxe, and develop their own mining template, that in itself is a form of decentralization. It's just like again, tiny nodes on the network as opposed to just a bunch of like hashers contributing their hash rate to a handful of miners.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but we digress because we're talking about like business adoption in Chicago.
yeah,
We get because like these controversies in the Bitcoin space are informative. They're educational for me, and they're
hmm,
also kind of petty in the way they play out. So they kind of take up my attention, as opposed to like the I guess the more serious or economic stuff.
yeah, yeah. No, it's always interesting and see how it plays out. And even when you're on the right side of things, it's like, oh, they don't really go back and say, oh yeah, you were right about that, or maybe I. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I saw the mayor of New York, Eric Adams. Have you been paying attention to the Bitcoin conference at all?
Yeah, so some of our Sovreign folks are down there now.
Oh,
So
nice.
I've been kind of following along. Obviously, I'm not there. I'm at home with the wife, and she's pregnant. But yeah, some of our CEOs down there, Brandon, he's actually from Chicago.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so well, the new CEO, and then some of the other guys are down there as well. So I'm kind of following along. Um, and I think I think the mayor of New York mentioned Bitcoin. I think yesterday or a couple days ago, Steak and Shake had announced that they're launching Bitcoin in all their locations, so you can pay in Bitcoin there. Well, I haven't been there yet, but I want to try. I want to go there and try their tallow fries
Oh,
and
nice.
pay in Bitcoin. And yeah, so just kind of following along like the major announcements. Obviously, there's the MicroStrategy that everyone knows about with the Michael Saylor, and there's always it's always interest like it's always interesting. There's always controversy with him with like like the proof of reserves or like his overall strategy and how he runs it. And I get the concerns, but it's like his playbook for how he announced it. Like even 4 years ago, like when he's like, "Oh, we're going to adopt a Bitcoin strategy for our treasury," and it's like even 4 years ago, people like thought he was insane. Like this guy's taking an
Yeah.
enormous amount of risk. Like it's
Yep.
never going to work. And then now, fast forward 4 years ago, he's raising billions of dollars in capital, from investors, and it just seems like it's only going to continue to increase in terms of adoption. Like every day, like it's almost tough to keep up with all the breaking news of like this
Oh,
company has added
completely.
Bitcoin. Like it's every day. Like even like there's like a Swiss company like Hub 100 or something that
Oh,
added, or I can't even remember the name
I'm
of
going
it.
to write that down.
Um,
They announced something at the conference?
Not at their conference, but it's like companies that like it's like the top 100 companies that have Bitcoin in their treasury or like as part of
Yeah.
their businesses. So MicroStrategy is at the top, and you have the Maras and the exchanges, and then just
Yep.
they're just another company adding just stacking Bitcoin. So it's like every other day or even every hour there's like a major announcement. This company is buying hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin, and for me personally, I'm just surprised that maybe we're still early, but like in the price, but I'm surprised like the price hasn't gone higher with like all the adoption with like institutional, corporate, retail, like, like there's so many on top of like the normal buyers already and like the holders. Like I'm surprised it hasn't gone higher, but maybe by the time this podcast airs or in a couple of weeks it will be hitting more all-time highs. But it's
Yep.
just like the adoption rate is only increasing. It's like it's every day. It's like it's I'm like, where's that inflection point? Like where we're gonna continue to go higher and higher, and then maybe for you personally, but I'm like in a couple of group chats, and my phone always gets blown up or like all these text messages when either Bitcoin drops like 30,
Yeah,
40%, or
exactly.
like
What
it
happened?
goes up a
Yeah.
lot. Hey Alex, what's going on with Bitcoin? Hey, I saw Bitcoin's going up, and then they try to figure out why, and I'm like, I kind of laugh at their reasons why, and sure, yeah, that's why. Or so
My husband and I were joking the other morning that, like, if you look at the Bitcoin price and it goes up, right away you check the news. Or if you see something that's either bullish or bearish about Bitcoin in the news, right away you check the Bitcoin price. Like, it's almost like an automated response now.
yeah, and like
So,
even
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say like yeah, just going back to I can always tell like when there's the price is moving because I like my phone's like I'm in like group texts like I'm like the Bitcoin guy, so like they're always like, oh yeah, Alex, what's going like they always try to figure out why like you said the price is either going up or going down, and I'm like I try to I'm like okay, well whatever you guys think it is, then that's fine. But so
That's what it is.
yeah, I'm like
So
oh yeah.
for like smaller businesses that are looking at MicroStrategy and I think it's MetaPlanet, the company in Japan, and all of these announcements,
Yeah.
what should they sort of retain from what's going on, and what should they sort of discard and figure out their own path on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, as I mentioned earlier, not every business needs to use Bitcoin the same way.
Yeah,
So, um, I think it's important. It's important to understand that how MicroStrategy or a large company, public company, uses Bitcoin will be pretty different than how a small business, even a medium sized or a private entity will utilize Bitcoin. And I think you can kind of see like all the public speculation, and since MicroStrategy is a public company, so there's a lot of public scrutiny along with their strategy. But I think it's a lot easier when you're a smaller mid-sized company or
yeah,
smaller mom and pop shop to adopt it. There's less people to convince. You don't have to convince a board. I think it's
yeah,
overall less risky. And again, I think you start small. You start with a small allocation, depending on your risk tolerance, maybe 1 to 5%, of your overall cash flows or your cash reserves, because obviously inflation is kind of out of control. I think most business owners and people are feeling that today, so they're trying to
yeah,
figure out all the different ways they can beat it, or how do I.
yeah.
Before it was like 2 3%, so you can okay. If you're not beating 2 3% in your business, then you have bigger problems. Then you're probably not going to be around for long. And now it's like or it's hard to put a real pin on the true inflation because I think it's much higher, but it's like 8, 9, 10%. It's very high. So you have to have an investment or some type of asset to offset those risks. Okay, so
Yep.
then unless your business is consistently pulling in 10 to 15% margins, which most businesses aren't, so you kind of need some type of leverage, and then you take your 1 to 5% of your cash allocation or your cash reserves, put into Bitcoin. If you need to convert into fiat to pay your vendors, or sure you can do that. I think if people have this misconception where if you buy Bitcoin, you can't convert it to like another currency. Like
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want with it. You have more control over that than if you put it into like a bank account and try to move it around, or paying your
Yep.
vendors internationally. You're paying a lot of international fees or settlement fees or credit card fees. Like there's all these transaction fees, and that starts to eat away in a lot of businesses, especially the
Yep.
smaller ones, with all the transaction fees, the merchant fees, the Visa, the Mastercards, on top of everything else that they have to, make a profit and to pay other vendors. So
Yep.
you're kind of forced to like in this cycle of like, okay, like especially if costs keep rising, they have to keep raising the price of their products, and it's like this never-ending hamster wheel of like raising prices, raising costs,
Yep.
and where's the end? So you can,
Yep.
I think, to go back to the small business and medium size, I think it allows you to stay small. Like you don't like I think in the current financial system, most startup businesses that want to keep growing, like they have this mentality, like you have to keep growing and growing and growing to get big to survive. Otherwise, you'll die. But I think Bitcoin allows you to stay small and like lean and agile. You don't have to like scale like to these crazy levels, or
Yep.
you can stay a small or medium sized business. Hold on to your Bitcoin. Keep it in a cold storage or safe wallet, and then you can use that to raise more capital for your business, raise more value, issue more shares, raise more money, and stay in business. And that's the end goal, right? You want to stay in
Yeah,
business.
which should be the point. Like, my hope is that it's odd because I think that MicroStrategy or strategy have like they've definitely pivoted away from their key operating business, which is business intelligence software, to become a Bitcoin treasury company,
Yeah.
BTC. And my hope is that the opposite actually happens for, privately held small to mid-sized businesses where they don't have to go too much in the financialization realm, and they can actually like stay within their core operations and produce, I don't know, whatever amazing like products or services that they actually produce, so that we start getting quality again in life. Like it's not just, like you buy this and it falls apart in like 7 days or something.
Yeah, yeah, no, I would agree. I think Bitcoiners that sell their products just intuitively have higher quality products, or they provide a higher quality service, and yeah, like the current financial system or structure we in, it's like higher prices, higher margins, but that doesn't mean higher quality because they just had to produce more, get it out the door, and it's almost like it's the opposite of like the quality effect of like, well, if the more you produce, like, and in the shorter amount of time, you're gonna, the quality is gonna suffer, either
Yeah.
the quality of the product or the service, and it's just not going to be good. So I think you want to get back to, I think, yeah, going back to staying small and lean, and it allows you to, you're not forced to like grow, like, oh, well, we're a
Yeah.
mid-sized company, we're doing a million or 10 million in revenue, but we have to, raise our capital 5x to become a public company and to go public and raise this money for shares and issue equity, and then do the whole stock buyback scenario. But instead of buying the stocks, we buy Bitcoin as part of our treasury. So so I think I think it allows you to stay small. Um, it allows you the business owners to figure out their biggest pain points, or to solve their biggest
Yeah.
problems, which is cost of their products, their services, inflation, and just having enough runway to stay in business, because they're living on the margins, and their
Yep.
money is being diluted, they're being debased more rapidly than before, I think. And it's more evident, like it's when you have such a high inflation rate, like you kind of see like even like the housing, for example, like the real estate. Like if we would have bought the same house that we live in now, our house would be like double the mortgage payment for like
Whoa.
the same house. Like it's like the mortgage rates are like 6 or 7% or whatever, or even higher. I can add this the last time I checked.
Whoa.
So it's like, and like the Gen Zs, like the younger generations, are being essentially priced out of
Yeah.
the housing market because, before I got into, Bitcoin, I wanted to do well. I wanted to, Robert Kiyosaki was a big real estate investor, so I wanted to like, oh, we're gonna do real estate. We're gonna, keep buying and rental properties, and everything is tax free. We're not paying any taxes. So I kind of thought, oh, maybe I would buy. I think like the one of the business ideas I had was like, we'll buy like a property, a rental property, and then charge, and then charge like the tenants in Bitcoin, and like, oh, you can pay in Bitcoin, but it's like a discount, but so like some of those cash flows converting it to Bitcoin, and
Yeah.
then and doing it that way. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see.
What is the real estate market like in Chicago?
Oh, it's like I said, we bought our house like I think like a year into COVID, so like the rate we got was like
Okay, yeah.
2 or 3%. It was a great rate, and um, yeah, so like the housing market, like even it's kind of crazy. Like it's like the rates haven't really dropped since then. Like it's been like what 7, 8%, like 9%. So like the amount of capital you need just to buy even a single family home, not even like a rental property, forget about that. Like
Yeah.
like most younger families or couples can't even afford like to start a home because like the mortgage
Wow.
rates are so high. Like it's almost like they're being priced out of the market.
Yep.
So it's kind of yeah. We get lucky when we bought. Yeah, it's a challenge because that was one of the other, like I said, one of the other ideas. Like, oh well, real estate's always a big play. Robert Kiyosaki talks about rich dad poor dad. So it's like, oh, like that could be like a side investment. But since the rates are so high, it's just not. I mean, like you can't get into the market. Like it's
Hmm.
very difficult. Like unless you have you're sitting on 10 grand or you have a side pile of cash ready to invest.
Yeah.
It's very challenging. I think I saw an article recently like the average home buyer of 2025 is like over 50 years old or something like that. Like it went from like
Yeah.
35 to like 45 last year to like 55.
Because
Like
they're the only ones with. Uh, if
they
you
don't know if they
hear
can afford it.
if you
So,
hear a thud, it might be a yoga mat that's about to fall. Just FYI. I don't know why it's moving. What was I gonna say? Uh, with housing, I've been Toronto. Apparently, the condo market now is collapsing. Like it's turning into a buyer's market because
okay.
they built so much, and they actually relied on foreigners coming in.
Okay.
Ah, there it was. Um, and now that the Canadian government policy has changed, and less foreigners are coming in, they don't have anyone to buy up or to rent out these condominiums. So there's a lot of inventory on the market.
So there's more inventory than renters or buyers. So are you kind of seeing like the prices go down then?
I guess that's the next step, that the prices will start to go down, but I don't know how it's going to actually play out.
Yeah, I think there's a similar situation going on in Florida. My wife's brother-in-law kind of lives down there, and basically, yeah, there's more inventory than people moving down there. So even though the interest rates are super high, like you see like big price cuts, like 20, 30, 50K, like people are already losing money from like when they first bought it a couple years ago,
Whoa.
like to what they're listing that the listing price is now. So you kind of already see that like in some of the more popular markets, and Chicago's like a big city market and metro market, so it has its ups and downs, and like spring around this time, a big buyers market. So there's probably more inventory than buyers because of the overall demand, unless it's going to be BlackRock or some of those
Yeah.
some of those hedge funds coming in and buying all the inventory and raising raising the prices of the assets. So
So, okay, real estate, Chicago again. I remember when I was in Chicago on the water. Forgive me for not remembering the proper names of things, but
no,
we're
you
on
can
on the boat, And at one point, there's like the Trump building or a Trump Tower or
Yeah.
something. It
Hmm.
was huge. It was huge. Um, is there love for Trump in Chicago? Like the fact that his family and he's come out with this whole treasury thing, like does that have an influence on the way people see, I guess, Bitcoin or evaluate his presidency?
That's a great question. Um, it's like a big divide. It's like if you're, it's either there's like no in between. Almost like you're like a big
Yeah.
Trump fan or you're like big anti-Trump. And I'm not a big fan of or if him or against him. I always laugh because whoever's like the administration in charge, whether it was previously Biden or Trump, like whatever big moves they make, it's like if you're already against them or like they haven't hit
Yeah.
your like if you're a Republican and the Democrats are in charge, you're always going to be critical of like, okay, well, why are they doing this? And I don't agree with that. Um, so there's a lot of
It's polarized.
yeah, very polarized. It's like sometimes a very animosity. So I try to avoid those conversations.
Yeah.
But
Okay, I hear you.
I'm like, well, what about Bitcoin? Or like, what? Or whenever I hear like, oh, well, Trump's doing this with Bitcoin, and I'm like, he didn't invent Bitcoin, or it's
Yeah.
Bitcoin is
Yeah,
like,
that's a good point.
yeah, like it's like whoever's in charge, like it's oh, well, they're trying to ban it, or the previous administration was like had the Operation 2.0 chokehold, so they're very, you can kind of either incentivize or decentivize, kind of a lot of on ramps or levers up with administration. So the previous one, you know, there was a lot of speculation because there was a lot of regulatory uncertainty.
Yeah.
Like even before Trump came in, it was a bigger risk. I mean, even before Wall Street's and the ETFs, there was always like, oh well, what about the regulatory? What about the SEC?
Yeah.
What's going to happen with their ruling? So there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty. So I think now that that's starting to fall by the wayside. So I think now it's like, I think it's less speculation, and now businesses are kind of seeing the value of it. So kind of zooming out and okay, putting putting the politics and the polarization aside, kind of looking at what are the actual policies like that are being
Yeah.
implemented. Like the strategic reserve was a big one, um, and even the states too. Like I find it interesting, like the state level versus like the federal level, and there's always like an ongoing battle of like what's legal on a federal level versus the state level. Um, and there's so much red tape with like the government, like in terms of like how they manage and how they run some of those, how they run some of their entities. Like, there's so much. I kind of saw a glimpse of it even before, before I got into Bitcoin. My wife and I actually wanted to start just applied to open up a recreational cannabis dispensary business in Illinois
Mm-hmm.
when it was first legalized, right before COVID. And it was a long process. We submitted an application. We did a lot of trainings. We did one in Detroit, like learning how to use the products and services, and you know, creating a business plan.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of work. Long story short, we didn't end up winning the license, but I learned a lot about like the
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because there weren't licenses available for everyone, right?
yeah. So let's see.
Yeah, I think it was the same in Ontario. Yep.
Basically, yeah. So what I found was that each state, each territory does cannabis laws differently. Like each product is taxed differently. Um, didn't make any sense, but that's just how it is. Like it's
Yeah.
like some states, and some of the first states like Colorado or California that had too many licenses or some, and then for Chicago, for Illinois, it's on a state basis. They did it in rounds, but they did only 75 total for the whole state, and it
Yeah.
was a $5,000 non-application or non-refundable application fee, and we had to spend a little more to get our to work with the security to get our security plan as well. And you can submit up to I think like 5 or 10 applications, and it was kind of graded based on a score. They had criteria, and there was it was a big deal about like DEI and like oh we're gonna try to help minorities and things like that. And when I looked at the legislation, my wife and I are both minorities, but unless since
Are
we
you
didn't
a minority?
like in terms of like I'm Puerto Rican and my wife is she's Guatemalan and
Oh,
Mexican.
okay.
which is why I'm Bitcoin Rican. But
Oh,
so
yeah,
yeah,
click. Yes, that makes sense.
um, so yeah, so we didn't even in like the language of the or the criteria to qualify for this like a big section of the criteria for the businesses. Basically, if you didn't have a criminal background or if you weren't like arrested for like marijuana or cannabis back in the day, you didn't basically qualify. It's like, how does this help anybody? Like it was like the criteria was so specific that most people didn't
Wow.
qualify. And like when they started doing, it was a very long process. When they started issuing like their first round of licenses, like some of the big four accounting firms that were doing the evaluations, some of the people on the board were like some of the people that were doing the evaluations were like potential business owners, or like board members of like these new business own. Like how is that not a conflict of interest? And
I
I was
know.
so frustrated with the whole process because we spent like almost because around the time that's when they opened it up, and then COVID came. So like the process went from like a long process to almost like 3 years. It was dragged
Wow.
out, like many rounds, and basically all the license that went to like the big players, like the medical companies that already had those licenses, they got dips first. So it's kind of like this going back to centralization theme. Like if you have a
Yep.
lot of money and you know the right people and you're in the right
Yep.
players, like you can get access to everything. And here's your license, and hit the ground running. But if you're a small business owner, you don't know anybody, you don't have a lot of capital, and you're just trying to get
Yep.
your foot in the door. And I was so frustrated. I'm like, this is the complete opposite of like Bitcoin, and like
Yeah.
it's like very welcoming. Everyone tries to help you and get you along your way. And it's like I was so frustrated with like trying to get a license with this cannabis dispensary because I thought like, oh, if we do get a license, maybe I'll down the road we can be one of the first dispensaries to accept Bitcoin or have that
Yep.
as an option. And I even checked even earlier this week if that's even an option, and I don't think you can. Like I don't even think businesses can even accept Bitcoin because cannabis is still illegal on a federal level, so a lot of the places can only
Oh,
take
yeah.
like debit cards or cash. So it's a very nuanced subject. So maybe it worked out for the better. So, but I saw it firsthand with like the government policies, and I think Jerome mentioned it with like so much red tape with like all the like they're only going to improve something
Yep.
unless they can get a share or like a cut of like the revenue. And there was and like those dispensaries, they're making millions of dollars. It's a lot of revenue, a lot of taxes.
Yep.
It's just crazy. So yes, my
Yep.
little spiel.
They're friends. Yeah, but it's so relevant, you know. If you're part of the inner circle, then you get all of the advantages. It's just like the Cantillon effect, you know. The closer you are to the money printer, the more money you will get. Like that's just the way it is. Hi everyone, it's Saida, host of Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions. To my listeners based in Canada and the US, if you're looking for a seamless way to stack sats, i.e., save money in Bitcoin, check out the Bitcoin Well. And you're probably thinking, Sai, you moved to Switzerland a long time ago. How do you know the service is good? Well, I asked my father, the man who famously told me there's nothing wrong with being frugal, to test out their service, and everything checks out. He visited one of the ATMs in Scarborough. It was very intuitive, very easy to use, and the fees were not too high. So if my dad says it's okay, it's okay. Remember to use referral code AAB21Q when you stack sats with the Bitcoin Well. And please, please, please let me know how your experience is. Give me all of the details. And if you'd ever like to be on Ask a Bitcoiner 21 Questions to talk about your experience with Bitcoin Well or just your experience with Bitcoin in general, I would be more than happy to host you.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned the money printer, and that was like another big aha moment for me too. Is like during COVID.
Yeah.
Aside from like the craziness, like even like the monetary policy of like, I think that's when I
Yep.
was started more on Bitcoin Twitter and following the more skeptical people were like, what is it? What are we doing? But just from like a fiscal policy perspective, we printed $6 trillion. We inflated 40% of the M2 money supply, and I knew right then, I was like,
Yep.
I was like, this is like everything is gonna go up in price. Like, all the assets are gonna go up in price. Like cost of living is gonna skyrocket. And no one really did. Not that we were supposed to be up in arms, but a lot of that stimulus money went towards like the corporations and the big money players. Like you said, if you're closer to the money printer, you got access to those PPE loans. Even if you didn't even qualify, you can probably apply and
Yep.
got a grant, or they would just give you money. Um, and then like the everyday folks like us, like, oh well, here's your little STEMI check. Here's 1,300. I forgot what it was. It was like $1,300, whatever. Basically probably to calm the masses from like oh well, we're giving 90% of the of the money supply, or the newly printed money to the corporations and the insiders, and then we're gonna leave the breadcrumbs and the small bits, the leftovers for you guys, and hopefully they get that, and that makes you guys happy. And so
Shut you guys up. So, so there's the state and the federal level. I saw on Bitcoin Twitter, and I think I read a few articles as well about when you actually spend Bitcoin, it's a taxable event. Is that a federal sort of law, or is that vary depending on what state you're in?
I think it varies, but at least from my understanding, and I get this question a lot because everyone's like, "Oh, you've been in Bitcoin a lot. You must be well rich," and no, but
Yeah.
also paying a lot of taxes. And I'm like, no, because I don't sell it. I think from my understanding, and I think it's on a federal level too, unless you like sell, like you buy and like you're doing like day trading, or like you're shorting it, you're longing it, like you're doing a transaction to like sell it,
Yeah.
then you would pay capital gain tax on it. I think like if you were to buy like for example, if you were to go to Steak and Shake and buy burger and shake and fries, whatever, you might have to report that on like your earnings. But like unless you're doing like a heavy trading, or like you
Yeah.
a lot of your Bitcoin, most of it is not taxable because you're just buying and holding it. So like what are they going to tax you on? Like buying, like they can't tax you on buying it. So it's more in like the transaction of like of like selling it or like doing something else with it. Then that's kind of where you get into like the muddy waters. Like, okay, well, should I be reporting this? This additional income on the side. So that's a good question. So I think unless and I'm not a day trader, so you're doing shorting and longing, so my taxes would look a lot different than someone who who would be doing that, because I think you'd be paying a lot of, or you would be paying capital gains tax on the profits, whatever. So
Yeah. Do they still have all of those IRS agents that they hired a few years ago? Was it like in 2022 or 2023? There
yeah,
was
they
like
hired
60,000 or 80,000
they
or
hired
something.
like yeah so many, and then I think the new administration took most of that away, which I was happy for, because I'm like, do you really need like do you really need all these people to tell you how many people or how much money you owe in taxes? And I get so frustrated with like the whole with taxes in general. Maybe I'm channeling my Robert Kiyosaki, but why would you pay taxes on something like that?
Yeah.
But taxes are like the most, or especially for an employee, or you're working most of your life. It's the highest cost for most people, but
Yeah.
they don't really know how to figure out. Okay, well, how do I not pay tax, like legally, right? How do I not pay taxes, or how do I, and their first thought is, well, I'll just make more money, but you're just paying more taxes in that tax bracket. Like you're not offsetting that cost. So the way to do that, is buying hard assets. As Robert Kiyosaki said, don't go to school, don't get a job, or invest or invest in the stock market. Buy gold, commodities, gold, and silver, and Bitcoin. So I was like, well, I'm not going to buy commodities, so I'll stick with Bitcoin. Um, and see what happens. So
He's super bullish on Bitcoin. And you're not the first person who mentioned Robert Kiyosaki on this podcast. I didn't realize the type of reach and influence that he has, or he had.
yeah, there was I'm gonna see if there was an interview recently. There's a guy from Romania. I think he did it a few years ago. And it's with Robert Kiyosaki, and he's asking about what's this guy's name? George something. Let me see if I can find it. But it's a pretty difficult interview, and he's like I want to see if I can find it. George, I had it up. Oh, Nope, maybe not. Trading Places. Anyway,
Oh
I
yeah,
find the
the
same way.
movie.
Basically, it's like a 25-minute interview, and he, Robert's asking like tough questions. He's like, "Why would you save money when they're printing money?" And
Yeah,
he asks it like a couple times. And he gets like frustrated. He's like, "Why would why would you save money when they're printing money?" And the guy's like, "I don't know. Like he gets because that's what you've been told to do. Like you don't." So I think people have a hard time just questioning everything they've been taught, and I think
yeah,
that goes into the whole ego check and egotistical. Can you admit you've been wrong about something before and kind of come back to it? I think a lot of people struggle with that, like being wrong about Bitcoin, and then how much long. Okay, you were wrong about it at first. Like how much time or what price will it take to get you back in it? Will it like, and that's what I
yeah.
kind of feel. Not feel sorry for some of my friends and family, but it's going to be the same thing with like the next cycle. Like it's like I already know what's going to happen. Like Bitcoin's going to go up to like 150, 200, 300,000 for this next cycle. It's going to go high, and
Yep.
I'll be getting the same text message. Should I buy now? How much
Yeah.
higher can it go? Is it should I buy now? Is it the right time? Or should I sell? Should I take
Just
profits?
yeah.
It's like, oh my God, it's the same, and it's the same thing. Like it's the same. It's gonna be the same cycle. Like it's you're almost like adding like a zero to it. Like now we're like this past cycle it was well in the previous cycle it was $1,000 swings. This one was like in 2021 it's like 10K swings. Now it's going to be 100K swings. Like we'll go up to like 250, 300,000, and then it'll crash right back down to like 150, 200,000, and I can already see like the panic of like, oh my God,
Yeah, we're
I lost
poor.
$100,000 in Bitcoin. Like it's all gone. Like what do I do?
Yeah.
The panic, the paper hands or whatever you would call it. And it's the same thing. It's going to happen. This every it's a cycle. It's every 4 years, and it's like if you just hold on to it, you
Hmm.
don't panic sell. I think like I love looking at charts and like data.
Yeah.
The 200 moving week average. It's like you've never lost money, even if you bought at like
Yep.
at the worst time at the top of like 2021, and you hold on to it for 200 weeks. You're still in the profit. So I think yeah, it'll be big green candles and big profits later. So later this year. So I'm curious to see how high it'll go, but it'll be it'll be volatile. So I think people don't understand volatility is built in. It's a feature, not a bug.
Not a bug.
So
Yep.
yeah, so if you can look past the volatility in the short term, you get the long term gains, right? I think a lot of people like the short term gains, they get rich quick, or I think Ed Jerome mentioned it in his podcast, like oh, I'm just gonna make this big parlay, and I'm gonna
No,
make.
you're not.
No, you're
I
not.
love the way he says that.
You're gonna get wrecked. I was
Yeah.
like, yep, that's my friends too. Even with any sporting events, like major sporting events, like I might throw like a few bucks on it just to make it interesting for me to watch,
Yeah.
like just some skin in the game. Because when all my friends like, oh, I'm gonna make this big parlay, and I'm gonna make all this money. And even if they did, okay, well, let's say you did make all this money, what are you gonna put into it? Like, what are you gonna put into that in that profit? So I'm like, you're not, you're gonna get wrecked. You're gonna put into some shit coin, or you're gonna, and that's like the appeal of like that's why people get drawn into those altcoins, and
Hmm.
it's like oh well, the big gains of like, oh well, Bitcoin's already so high. How much, I can't get the big profits, but I can buy 1,000 or 10,000 Dodge or Tron or Ethereum, or just pick whatever. Doesn't matter which one you want. Pick one. Pick one. Um, but they're all, if you look at them compared to Bitcoin, they're all going down. They're all being
Hmm.
slowly being devalued. I think you know that. So it's funny when people try to get involved in those other coins, but I tried my best to steer away. But if they want to get wrecked on their own and learn that lesson, they can learn that lesson. So
You mentioned earlier that your dad, with Netflix, like he used to mail it in, and you said that he was also sort of like an innovator, like an
yeah,
early adapter. Is
kind of
he into
yes and
Bitcoin
no.
as well?
Yes and no. Maybe that was one of the few things, but I would say my mom more is like she's like a
Oh
very
yeah,
tech. She's so my father's an attorney, and well, it wasn't. They're both retired.
yeah,
And my mom was a teacher for many years.
yeah.
So The question I always asked guy growing up is, "Do you want to, follow in your father's footsteps as being a lawyer?" And I always said no. Like law, like the boringness of like blowing. I like learning about new things, technology and gadgets, and like
Yeah.
learning, like banging my face in a textbook with like laws. It was like nails on a chalkboard. I was like, no, like I don't I don't want to do that. Like it didn't appeal to me. So. But yeah, going back to my parents, I would say my mom is probably more. She's like always reading and like the latest tech, and so I bought her the Bitcoin standard, thinking that she would be orange pill and have her aha moment, and she kind of did, but like it didn't really like. She kind of like oh, it kind of like faded out. Like she got involved, like she bought some Bitcoin,
Oh, good for
and
her.
I bought her. I helped her set up like the wallet. I bought her like a little hardware wallet. I did the same thing for my mother-in-law recently. So kind of like, okay, here's how you buy Bitcoin, and don't keep it on the exchange because I made that most of the, I made that was one of the mistakes before is like recommending buying Bitcoin on those exchanges where you get the yield, like the Voyager, the Celsius, the
Oh
BlockFi.
dear.
Luckily I didn't lose a lot of it, me personally, but I know I wasn't like, oh, you guys need to pull it off your exchanges enough. So
Yeah.
some of them kind of got burned in those.
Oof.
So and I was another mistake I made was I was kind of reckless with my own security with like trying to figure out like just I didn't verify who I was um, transacting with. I was trying to figure out
Hmm.
basically. Let me tell you this story. So I was trying to figure out
Yeah.
yeah one of the I do like a lot of DCAs and a lot of transferring and buying, and one of the transactions kind of stalled. So I was doing many things at once, not really paying attention, not focused. And a day later, I was like, okay, let me just reach out to this exchange and get this resolved. But I didn't realize that I was not talking to someone from the actual exchange. Like I was like doing, didn't really verify who I was,
Buying from?
communicating with. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they like sent this some web like, oh yeah, here just go to this website, plug in your information, and it'll get resolved. But yeah, so long story short,
Oh dear.
yeah, I learned that lesson the hard way, and I was like, before I was like, oh, I'm not gonna make a big mistake, and luckily I didn't lose all of it. I just lost a decent amount of it, over half. But that's kind of why I was like, I always harp on like, making sure that your security is like sound. Make sure you verify who you're talking to, and don't never give up your seed phrase or your don't put it into any websites or click on any shady emails like Coinbase, for example. There's always like phishing attacks, and every time I
Yeah.
get an email or notification from Coinbase, I'm like, and I haven't even used Coinbase that much, but I'm like very hesitant to even click on it or to even use it because it's from my own past experience and mistakes. So that's kind of why I focus a lot on if you buy a Bitcoin, pull it off the exchange, and then
Yeah.
don't don't think about it. Just leave it there, and don't keep it secure. So
Yeah. And once you have your sats, there's no customer service. Like no one needs to contact you to say, "Are your sats okay?" Like you just any follow up, you're like delete, delete,
yeah,
delete,
you're like, oh,
delete.
like I'm from so and so in exchange, or that. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, like uh, I feel like if the longer you are in Bitcoin, or like you have you have a keen sense of like spotting out scams now. Like it's like, oh, well, that doesn't seem right, or like I
Yep.
don't know, maybe.
Yep, most definitely. So I guess that's part of your service offering as well with Sovereign, to help businesses identify, I guess, I don't like to use the word trust, but you know what I mean? Sources where you can legitimately acquire Bitcoin without actually, getting all of the bullshit that you need to deal with afterward in terms
Yeah.
of, phishing emails and other types of scams.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of like what we do is like we provide that like that white glove service, but a lot of it's
Yeah.
education and like but like with the education, it's like okay, what like the kind of talking through the traps to avoid because whether the traps that we have gone through personally or that we kind of know, okay, don't hold your Bitcoin on exchanges, or if you do, create a multi-sig wallet, or if you're doing treasury reserves, making sure that you have the right partner to do it with, or trusted it.
Yeah.
You're not just buying Bitcoin off of some shady exchange and then they're kind of exposing your information.
Yep.
So really just providing, like the white glove service, but like kind of guiding them through their Bitcoin journey, and like, hey, here are the Rivers, a good example, or a good partner that we work with. Bitcoin only exchange. They're
Yeah.
focused a lot on security and custody, um, and just open and transparency. And I think me personally, and I know Bitcoiners value transparency a lot. And they're very critical on Bitcoin Twitter, and I always love going on like seeing like the arguments of like,
Yeah.
oh, why companies should do it this way, or like why they're being shady, or they should talk about this, or whether Bitcoin backed loans, or rehypothecation, things like that. So I always find it very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And so someone's watching this podcast based in Chicago, a business. They go on Bitcoin Twitter. They follow Michael Saylor and Strategy. They see this discussion about whether Strategy should share wallet addresses. What should that individual take from that? Well, this current sort of discussion that's happening.
Yeah, I've been kind of following that, and I can kind of see both sides. Like I get like why they want to see proof of reserves, but I feel like it would be like almost dumb to like for them to announce all these buyings and not have like proof of reserves, because eventually like they keep buying and buying it, and if there's nothing to back that, like it's paper Bitcoin, like that's only gonna come out like it's only gonna end bad and not end well for them. So I can kind of see that, but on the flip side, like it's other companies are showing their proof of reserves,
Yeah.
uh, and maybe they're not. I think they're not the scale of MicroStrategy. So I think, and plus with the amount of Bitcoin they hold, they're like it puts a huge target on their back, even if they don't expose
Yeah.
their addresses. Like they're the number one company or public company that owns Bitcoin. So like Coinbase, for example, is like they're in the top 10 of like, but they're always like getting attacked and like vulnerable. So I kind of see like the vulnerability side of like exposing their reserves, like their wallet addresses.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a different way. Maybe that's someone comes up with a more secure way to validate reserves without exposing
Yeah.
wallet addresses or sensitive information. I was kind of thinking about that. Like maybe that there's probably a better way to do that than to just, okay, here's the reserve, here's the wallet. You can kind of validate it versus, you know what I mean? Like you can kind of checks and balances without having to do a full audit of like, okay, do you need a full audit of the reserves of every Bitcoin company like every day? Probably not, but
Yeah. I'm back and forth on the issue, like you as well. Because, I mean, I think one of the big differences between like MicroStrategy and Tether, for example, is that Michael Strategy, like
I know
he's in there.
I do that all the time.
Strategy is publicly traded, right? And their whole business, the whole premise is, being a proxy to people who, for whatever reason, can't access Bitcoin. So from that perspective, I would say that they would probably owe it to their shareholders to show how much Bitcoin they have. But
Right.
then they are publicly traded, and all of this stuff is supposed to be in their filing papers. And so if they are lying, like they could go to prison, which to me is incentive to actually have the Bitcoin there. So it's like there's no like clean answer, and you can look at it and analyze it from so many different perspectives that all make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I agree with that, and yeah, and it's an ongoing challenge with like security and validating, and like you said, I think I kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt, because
Yeah.
they've been kind of doing it's so far they haven't been a bad player, a bad actor. So like unless he turns into like Sam Bankman-Fried or FTX, kind of going down that route, then maybe there's more room for concern. But um, yeah, I think it's like you said, it's maybe there's a better way to validate those type of
Yeah.
reserves from a secure way without exposing sensitive data from a company level or personal data, personal level. Um, so I can kind of see both sides, but yeah, I think if they didn't have, I feel like if they didn't have all the Bitcoin that they said they have, I think that would eventually get out, and
Yeah.
it would just they would strategy would no longer be strategy anymore. So
Definitely. But I would say for like, if you're a small to mid-sized business and you're looking at this, you know, whoever the key, like, I guess, stakeholders are in your business, maybe they need to know what Bitcoin is there. If they do, you probably have a multi-sig set up anyways, so
Yeah.
they're very aware of what's going on. Don't share your Bitcoin information publicly. I mean, unless it's part of your marketing scheme or this is well thought out and planned out, fine. But other than that, no one needs to know.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's kind of like sharing like your Lightning wallet address, like something you use to just receive payments. Okay, like but
Yeah.
you're not sharing your main wallet where your your main
Yeah.
assets are. You might want to okay, hey, if you want to send me payments or Bitcoin, here's my which we'll be doing later in this podcast. I'll
Yeah,
send
the Lightning Zap.
you know
Yeah,
what
like
coin
don't
pair?
reuse the same addresses or anything.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, like
always change addresses.
yeah. Always change it. Never use the same one. And I kind of started doing that too. Like I do so much cold storage and like I just buy it and move it offline right away that I don't really use the lighting as much as I thought I did. So I had to put some sats in there. I'm like, let me let me re-up my balance because I always like okay, I buy my little DCA buy of like $20 or whatever a week, $30 a week. It goes into my wallet and I automatically transfer it at the end of the week. So I don't really think about it. And I'm like, well, if I don't even have sats to send anybody from like my Lightning wallet because everything's in cold storage.
Ah, oh yeah.
So, yeah.
But it adds up really quickly, doesn't it? Like small buys on a weekly basis, it adds up. In like 2 or 3 years, you look and you're like, whoa.
It does add up. Even like the small amounts, and I have like on my phone, I have a ton of different Bitcoin applications that I use, and I haven't watched the episode for the S Miles one, but that's the one I use. I'm very active. Like I love
Oh yeah, nice.
working out, so the S Miles, and I love walking the dogs, so I'm always getting Bitcoin there. And other apps too, like there's Lolly, there's Fold. What other apps? I have my little Bitcoin mining machine. There's other like there's all these like little apps that gets me like a little amounts of Bitcoin, but over time I'm like okay, like I love getting free Bitcoin or just for Bitcoin, just doing things that everyday activities. So if I'm like
Yeah.
working out or I walk the dogs a lot, we have two labs, white lab and a yellow lab and a black lab. So I take them on long walks all the time. So I'm always getting my Bitcoin there. So
Yeah, and in the US, you guys are so lucky because you have folds, like you mentioned, and Lolly. You've got so many opportunities to, like, collect sats with the things that you do. Even with S Miles, because they give you rewards if you shop with certain partners. When I click, it says only available in the US and
oh
Canada.
no,
And now I'm based in Switzerland, so it's like I can't. All I do is walk and like spin the wheel and Fort Nakamoto.
yeah, yeah. I forget that you're in well, you're there in Switzerland, but I guess how is it like the Bitcoin community there compared to like I guess Toronto or from where you're from? Is it big differences? Or I don't like have you been to both or I guess what are your thoughts on that?
So I don't know what the Bitcoin community is like in Toronto. I've had two people, two Bitcoiners based in Toronto now on the podcast, and I asked them the question because I moved here in 2008 when Bitcoin
Okay.
was first released. So I don't know, I don't have that experience, but I would say that in Switzerland there's like so Switzerland is separated into cantons, which are like states, and there are four official languages here: German, Italian, French, and Romanche. And so I would sort of separate the community into languages. And I would say that the German speaking community seems to be very active and very like hardcore when it comes to Bitcoin. The French speaking community, a bit less. And within the Italian speaking part is called Ticino, and there's a city called Lugano where there's the famous Plan B conference. You can pay for things in Lugano with Bitcoin very freely, like, and they do have a whole structure there set up. You've got Zug as well, which is German speaking. So to me, it's more developed in other parts of Switzerland. Where I am in Geneva, you can buy Bitcoin at the post office. Now at the grocery store, they've got like the Bitcoin cards as well. But when I speak to people who live here, they're still into traditional banking and real estate. It's weird. It's like it's different depending on where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you speak other languages?
Yeah, I
Well,
speak French.
okay.
A little tiny bit of Spanish, like one sentence in German, but like French is my second language.
French, okay. Yeah, I speak Spanish pretty well. My wife is a little more fluent, but yeah, it's interesting to see. Even the whole Bitcoin beach in El Salvador, I thought that was interesting, especially when I got first involved. Like oh, Bitcoin beach in El Salvador, and they're always like scrutinized of like adopting, Bitcoin. I'm like, well, they're doing well, and um, there's always that. But yeah, then going back to the Chicago scene, and there's like Bitcoin ATMs like here and there. But there's not like a
Yeah.
ton of like Bitcoin stuff, but you kind of see it. And I always wear like either my Sovereign or my Bitcoin stuff at the gym or out and about, and
Oh yeah.
I get like comments here and there, but not really. I would think like in my head, I'm like, oh, people are like, oh, that's the Bitcoin guy. I'm gonna go ask him some questions, but that's
No.
not. You're probably like avoiding me, like, oh, that's the crazy Bitcoin guy. I'm gonna walk the opposite direction because he's just gonna try to orange pill me and talk nonsense.
It's so sensitive. One guy on the podcast said it's not about Bitcoin per se, it's about money. And money is a very emotionally charged topic for most people. And I think that the fact that, like you read about or you read Robert Kiyosaki, I
Hmm.
remember I bought like this old book on Carl Icahn, corporate raider, like the whole junk bond thing in the
Yeah.
80s and whatever, because I found it fascinating. Like people don't usually find these things very interesting. And so I think that, you know, up until like maybe before COVID ish, anyone who took the time to learn about Bitcoin, they did so because they're not that, I don't want to say sensitive about money, but money is not like an emotional like wound for them, like it's something that they're comfortable discussing and reading about and talking about.
Yeah, like they're almost comfortable. Okay, I know what I've been taught about money, and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna question anything about I've been taught, and I'm just
Yeah.
gonna use it to how I've been taught. Like I'm gonna save money. I'm gonna put money in the stock. Just saying, I'm gonna save money. I'm gonna put money in the stock market, um, whatever his saying was, and yeah. So I think even he said it in his reasoning, like what is money? Like money is
Yeah.
debt. And okay, then what is debt? And then you go into the whole. I think part of my orange pilling too is like for me when I was doing research on like money and Bitcoin, I was like, I think I have a negative view of like the government or like how they run their fiscal policies. Like they say it's one thing and does the complete opposite, and I kind of
Yeah.
people are getting frustrated with that. Um, and what was I going with this? I forgot. um,
You started with what is money?
oh yeah, okay. So what is money? Um, and then the kind of question. Okay, so what is money? And then so the question was okay. And then when I did research on the Federal Reserve, I was like the federal that was like the Federal Reserve is not federal, and they don't have any reserves, and they can pretty much dictate the policy as they see fit. And I was like, I found that I was like, how is that even like? And we've been running this Federal Reserve for so long, and then coming back to Robert Kiyosaki, he's like, oh yeah, we took in 1971, he took the dollar off the gold standard, so they can print as much money as they want, and it's backed by nothing. And that was, I think recently, a few
Yeah.
months ago, the whole big deal with the auditing the Fort Knox and their gold. I'm like, is there anything there? And it's interesting because you heard a lot of hype about it, and then you
Yeah.
don't really hear anything about it. So my guess is they didn't find what they're looking for. There's missing something missing. So maybe that's probably why they had to establish a Bitcoin or strategic reserve. Maybe more 80% Bitcoin and 20% gold because there's no gold there, or
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah, so going back to money, just questioning money, like how do you use it, like money's not especially the dollar, it's not a store of value. Like you're losing purchasing power year over year over year. So you figure out, okay, ways to invest your money. So, and I think when I first got started too, I was like looking at the data and the charts. I was like, okay, listening to Robert Kiyosaki and others, how there's other
Yeah.
investors. I was like, what's the best performing? or best performing asset in the past 5 years. That's Bitcoin. Same thing with 10 years or 15. No, what's the best performing asset in the past 10 years or 15 years? It's still Bitcoin. So
It's still
so it's like,
Bitcoin. Yeah.
okay, and then like, okay, so there's something I'm missing here, and then on the other side of that, it's like you get the question, okay, how much higher can it go? Like just study the cycles. Like it's a long-term play, and just hold on to it. Don't buy into the fear, uncertainty, doubt. Learn about it. Get some skin in the game, and see what happens. Bitcoin is not going to die. It's died, 300 times already in the past few years, or so whatever. So yeah, just question money, question what you've been taught, and I think
Yeah.
if you can even start to go down that route, like then you're on the right path. Like people, like you said, people don't even like, oh, I know what money is, I know how to use it, and they're not going to change how they use. Like why fix something that's not broken? Like they've been doing it for
Yeah.
30 years. Why make a change now? Like they're
Yeah.
so
So we're going to close out the interview soon, but before we do, because you
sure.
mentioned FUD just now, what is your favorite? I know it's part of the 21 questions, but like Bitcoin conspiracy theory.
Oh, I was gonna ask you first what was your favorite one, but you asked my favorite one. Um, let's see. Trying to figure because around the time when I joined Bitcoin Twitter, there was always like the Bitcoiners got labeled as conspiracy theorists or whatever, and a lot of the things that end up being true. I think um, let's see. One example is that like sunscreen is actually toxic for you and gives you like skin cancer. And like that's just one example. So, and it's funny because I found that out like recently, in the past year or so. So then now, whenever we go on vacation, like everyone always puts on sunscreen, and I'm like the black sheep of like, I don't want sunscreen, like none for me, and that you're gonna get burned or whatever. And like it's the same thing, and I end up being fine, or so that's one. Um, I'm trying to think of others. Maybe
Well,
you can share one, or go ahead.
well, while you think of more, my dad came on the podcast. My dad is like, I think that he is like instrumental in sort of laying the foundation on how I think and, like having a critical sort of eye on things. And when he was on, he talked about sunscreen. And like he just brought it up. He was like, because my family is from Trinidad and Tobago. My parents moved to Canada, and then
Hmm.
I moved here to Switzerland. But he said, like Cy, when we were kids, because they don't come from a lot of money. Well, on my dad's side, we were outside sometimes, like no clothes. We were in the sun, and we're just fine. Fast forward, like, my dad's older, so many decades. Why is the sun bad for me all of a sudden? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense. Um, yeah, and that's and then like I think when you go down the rabbit hole and you uncover like so many lies that you or so many things you've been taught or like that were wrong, so that you kind of like, okay, what else? You have this moment, you're like, okay, what else was I had been wrong about? And it's like almost scary.
Yeah.
Like I think for me, it's like, okay, what else was I been wrong about? And it's like
Yeah.
pick a
For
subject. I
women,
was wrong about that. I was wrong about that. Oh, I was wrong about
yeah.
that.
So,
So
like, on the whole, like, sunscreen sort of medical tip for women, there's so many things. I won't mention the name of it, but there's a birth control shot that came out, I don't know how many years ago.
mhm.
And now apparently there's a link to, I don't want to say the word, but it starts with the letter C. And it's like when it came out, I don't want to say all doctors, but doctors kind of push these things onto you where they say, like, what are you using for birth control? Have you considered this? Whatever. And
Mhm.
none of these products are like fully tested. So you have no idea what's waiting for you down the line. And so I would say that that's one that I've been mindful of for a while. And I try to avoid a lot of things just because of that.
Yeah, and that's another one too, is like the whole medical industry complex. Like they push a lot of products that are harmful. They're not really fully tested. A lot of people don't really know that. They're not really tested against placebos. They're tested against like other harmful products. Okay, which is a less harmful product?
Yeah.
Okay, that does. How is that even legal, or how does that loophole even exist? But it's with the
Yeah.
whole Rockefeller, well, not education, but the Rockefeller healthcare system, and how
Yeah.
you've been taught certain things. Um, so I'm more about like, okay, I'm gonna avoid usually whatever they recommend, I try to do the opposite.
Yeah.
It usually works out better. I'm like,
It's
okay, if
like
they're
the best
recommending,
strategy.
yeah, like especially with like some of the more traditional media, like if they're recommend like, and that's another problem with like some of the older generations that like the traditional
Yeah.
media they've been telling them they've been following it for so many years and like they can't fathom them like telling them a lie or like being not dishonest with them because they've maybe they were honest with them or they were a good media outlet back in the day or many years ago, sure, but now it's like it's there's so much there's so much misinformation and um, corruption
Hmm.
that you don't see. So like you can pay anyone, millions or billions or trillions of dollars and start a whole propaganda campaign and it would be effective. And
Yep.
it's it's crazy to see how effective the propaganda is, especially in the US. Like when you mentioned the pharmaceutical, like you can in most other countries you can't even advertise like medical products or like
Right? Like in the hotel at night, and you see these things, and then it's like side effects may include diarrhea, suicidal thoughts, whatever. And I'm like, how are you like sharing this with people, like citizens that you're supposed to love and want to take care of?
I always laugh. That's like my favorite part of the commercials. Whenever I am watching TV, unfortunately, like a sporting event, and the commercials come on, and like the and those commercials come on, I just start laughing as soon as they start mentioning the side effects. It's like side effects, risk of death, heart attack, lung collapse. It's like the risk are like sound way worse than the problem that they're solving. Like you could end up like dying or getting like all these more severe side effects than fixing this one small problem. I'm like, who would even buy this? But then you see in the commercial like everyone's having a good time and they're living
Yeah.
their best life, and I'm like, it's such a fake fiat. It's not reality, right? It's not reality. So
Do you follow Saifedean's brother on X?
I do not know. I didn't even know he had a brother. So,
Yeah, he does. He's a doctor. He's I call him Doctor Moose because I forget his first name, but I like his tweets. Some of them are so simple. Like he put out one the other day. It's just like first light, so natural light in the morning. Eat red meat. What did he say? It's like first light, red meat, orange money, dark nights, or something like that. Like just really basic things as a reminder of, simplicity in your life, how to live
yeah,
well by just doing normal things.
yeah, like you said, very basic things like getting natural sunlight, having
Yeah.
a clean routine in the morning. Like I like to work out and exercise a lot, so I try to do that early on in the
Yeah.
day. Getting diet and exercise. I probably more focus on exercise than diet, so I can kind of get away with cheating on my diet. But I like to
Yeah.
exercise a lot and keep myself. I think it's a fear of mine of getting like super old and not being able to move or being in a
Yeah. Especially with the new
wheelchair of like
baby
being
coming.
really
Yeah.
helpless. So I'm like I don't. That's like my biggest fear. So I'm like, let me stay active. And now that I'm gonna be a dad, um,
Yeah.
you know, either a girl dad or a boy dad, we still don't know yet. But we're excited as long as the baby's healthy. My
Yeah.
wife,
Amen.
she's 19 weeks now, or almost halfway. So she's starting the show, and I get excited just touching her belly. We can't feel anything yet, but it's exciting.
It is definitely exciting. I'm very happy for you. And I will pray for your family that you have health and sleep. That's the other thing. Sleep.
Yes, yes, thank you. Yeah. Getting my sleep now. I'm getting everything done. Like they said, the room that I'm in now was my office. It's gonna be the baby room in a few
Yeah.
months. So I was like, well, let me do some podcasts and some work up here before I get kicked down to the basement where where my mining machine is. And like, okay, because my wife, she works from home too, but she has like the mid floor
Yeah.
office. So if we ever have, she's always like, you always talk so loud during your meetings. So
Yeah. My husband does the same.
so
The
I
basement is the best place for you then.
yeah, so it's like, go to the basement. I don't want to hear like if we're like talking over each other if we have meetings. She's like, be quiet, or I can hear your voice all the way up here. So she's probably gonna give me a hard time now after this. Like, you're so loud. so,
You're
so
passionate.
yeah, yeah, and I've been looking forward to this conversation. It's funny because I was like, I don't even how do I reach out to you because like you weren't really on Slack, but I was like, I sent you a message a few weeks ago. And I'm like, maybe she hasn't checked it. Maybe she doesn't want me
No, I
on.
haven't checked in a while.
Maybe she doesn't want me on here, or what she's.
Oh, no, no, no.
No, no, not like that. But
Yeah.
or maybe like the calendar's full, and then I saw you sent over like the meeting invite. I was like, it's like the times. I was like, in my times, like 5 a.m. or 7 a.m. I was like, so.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you're in Switzerland, so it's
Yeah.
not that bad. It's seven. Well, we started at like 7:15 here, so I get up early, so not too bad. But
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's because and again, I feel very honored that people actually want to be on my podcast because I mean, you're like, okay, no one's going to listen to it. And especially coming from a place where in real life people don't want you to talk about Bitcoin, like I wasn't psyched to say like, yeah, this is going to be amazing and lots of people are going to want to come on. It was really like, okay, hopefully I can get people on. And so the scheduling is complicated, but I also like to scroll through your social media, read as much about you as possible, read about Chicago and stuff, so that in the in our discussion, I can actually speak to you and learn more about you. And also for the 21 questions, I like to have it not just generic, but sort of like tailored to you as well. So it takes me time to get to everything. So I'm more and more late with my responses, but that's all it is. I want
no,
everyone on this podcast.
no, it's an honor to be here, and I've watched a lot of the episodes, even though that it doesn't have a lot of views. I'm probably half the
Yeah.
views. I'm probably
Yeah,
half the
thank
views on
you.
there. Like your dad and the other sovereign consultants, because I'm like, I like getting to know other Bitcoiners, and
Yeah.
I think before I was like hesitant to watch some Bitcoin podcasts because part of me is like, oh, not that I know everything about Bitcoin, but like
Yeah.
I know enough about it. How much can I learn about it? And I'm like a jack of all trades, but a master of none. So I'm like, let me
Yeah.
learn some more personal stories, and just talk about Bitcoin. And because the people that get interested, or they want to find me, or they want to find like a pod, like, oh, I can, oh yeah, I was on this podcast, Ask a Bitcoin
Yeah.
questions, go watch it, and then they'll probably won't watch it, and they probably will ask me some other questions about it. But so
But at least they can see you as well. Like, there's something, they can get a sense of your style and your personality. YouTube and Bitcoin, unless you have like Michael Saylor and all the big names and stuff, it's a space where it's very intimate and small. Like the views are just so low.
yeah, it's a digital space, and it's like a digital neighborhood network, but it's so small. Like it's you got like that neighborhoody feel. Like I think like when you first join the Bitcoin ecosystem, you're like, where do you go to like talk about Bitcoin? There's Bitcoin Twitter, and like the important topics are okay. Who do you follow? Who do you connect? So I appreciate you doing this podcast, and you've been doing it I think over for a year now. You've had a ton of
Yeah,
great
yeah,
guests.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like I want to know like what was your like aha moment? Like I'm gonna start this podcast. And I'm gonna do this. Like, did you like have an idea you wanted to do the podcast and then just started it, or like did you have other ideas and then didn't work out? Or I'm kind of curious, like how did you?
Well, so it's been a year. This is 2025, 2024. Before that, so for a year and maybe a bit more, I was organizing the meetups here in Geneva, the Bitcoin Geneva meetup. And I'm also a mom, which is very important. And my husband travels a lot for business.
Okay.
And at one point, it just became like I couldn't follow through with my commitments because I would ask people to come in and give speeches and discussions and stuff. I used to rent out a room at a university. And then afterward, there was like a beer meetup. And so, and I also do judo because the meetup's in the evenings, the first Wednesday of the month. I do judo on Monday
Oh, wow.
evenings, and my husband started doing something else on Wednesday evenings, which is the same night as the meetup. And then on top of that, when he travels, it's hard for me to get a babysitter just for the one night. And so it just became too much, but I still want to talk to people about Bitcoin because I mean, like, hello, And so I decided to start the podcast, and it's a really cool learning journey because I'm not strong at branding or the visuals, how a page should look, what are the things that you should say in the first
Yeah.
like few minutes kind of thing to like draw
Yeah.
the the viewer in. I kind of feel bad with the clickbait. And so it's like it's sort of like a journey of, what I will do, because you need people to watch your videos, but like how far will I go, kind of thing. It's I wasn't expecting this, but it's very true. When you look at a lot of those crypto podcasts where their mouths are open and it's like, Bitcoin to 1 million or whatever.
Well, do like shocked face, like
Oh, here we go. We'll do it for the thumbnail.
there's like a fire going on in the background, or like an explosion or something
But
crazy.
it works though. And so it's like human psychology is so weird, because these are the people who will lead you to scams or lead you to risky ventures. Whereas like I speak to people who talk very honestly about what it's like, but it's not as sexy, it's not the thing that people will want to click on, because, no one's telling you you're going to be rich tomorrow if you buy Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's interesting, and like, yeah, it's always nice to hear other Bitcoiner stories and get involved. I think what you said about like you still want to talk to Bitcoiners, and I think a lot of my not inner circle, my close friends that I see in person aren't really Bitcoiners, so like they're
Yeah.
like the normies. So like they might mention it to me like when the price is going up, or like, but there's never any in-depth conversations, and I'm always like waiting for the chance. I'm like, okay, maybe if Bitcoin goes to like this price, maybe they'll pull me aside and say, hey Alex, I'm ready to learn about Bitcoin. And it's never the case. To like,
No.
it's like that meme. It's like, oh yeah, it's crazy. Bitcoin can change your life. Did you catch the game last night?
Yeah, exactly. It's so that it's
Oh.
and and it also, another driver that I don't think I've mentioned this publicly, or maybe I have, but it's, I'm like, I don't know, 20 years goes by, and all of the people I've encountered in real life, friends, associates, colleagues, whatever, I can in good conscience say I've always spoken about Bitcoin. I wasn't lucky. You've had so many like touch points and like so many opportunities to learn more. You chose to do it or you didn't choose to do it, but you know what I mean? Like, don't complain kind of thing. Like, it's almost like a preemptive sort of defensive position that I'm creating for myself.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too, because like a lot of, I'm sure you get it all the time whenever you say, oh, when you first got into Bitcoin, and you say whatever the year is, or 27, 2018, the automatic assumption is, oh, you were rich, you got lucky, and why
Yeah.
even bother educating people, because you're rich and you got lucky and you're set, right? You don't need any more money, why even bother? And it's like that's the complete wrong mindset. Is like you need to have the other, question everything, challenge, what you've been taught. Just have a low time preference, and not maybe not necessarily do less is more. Like you just buy a Bitcoin and hold it. Everyone has things that's like you need to
Yeah.
understand everything about Bitcoin before you get started, or like you don't explain to me
Yeah.
how any technology works. Like explain to me how your internet or the smartphone or any tool that you use works. Like you don't really know how it works. You know how to use it, and
Yeah.
you go about your everyday, and you trust that it works. You get in an airplane, you trust that it gets you from point A to point B.
Yep.
Or a train or a car or cell phone, internet. Like, and not everyone uses the internet, but okay, explain to me how the internet works in the back end. And
Yeah. What's
99.9% of the people
TCP/IP? Yeah.
glaze over, like, okay, but because it's funny because I used to work at Best Buy a long time ago in my retail job, when I was in school, and older folks would come in, and they would kind of ask the same questions, or like we would get in like, what are you looking to use this laptop? I would work in the home office department, so we would sell laptops, computers, and routers, and old folks would come in, and I would ask the questions, and they would say, okay, what can I use the computer for? And I'd always say, surf the internet, email, web, and like some of them are like, what do you like surfing the internet was for them was like, okay, well, what do you like?
What do you?
What
What does
concept?
that even mean?
Go,
Yeah.
go into chat rooms, oh, but it's like, no, you can go online, check your email, and like even email back then was like well, okay, I'd rather just do postcards or mail, but that's like now it's like I get excited when I get mail, like email, okay, junk.
Yeah.
Let me do I get any mail?
That's
How's
such.
it
I
going, man?
hate email. I'm like, yeah, that's hate email so much. But we're gonna wrap up the interview now. This was a lot of fun. It's
No, this is great. I had a great
yeah.
time.
Alex, can you tell people where to find you, where to find Sovreign?
Sure, yeah. So where to find me? I'm on LinkedIn, Alex Irizarry, and then on Bitcoin Twitter, my name is Bitcoin Rican. So I'm Puerto Rican, so you can find me on there. I'm also on the Sovreign website, so it's Sovringo. It's missing an
Yeah.
E. So there's Sovereign.io. I'm on the website there. So those are the main areas that I'm usually involved in. I don't really do too much on Nostr because I feel like it's mostly Bitcoiners talking to themselves, but and I should probably.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like I should be getting more over there, but I like the broad scale of like being able to like talk to anybody about
Yeah.
anywhere in the world about Bitcoin and what their thoughts are and how they use it in other countries. So
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alex.
Keys, 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 keys. Yeah. Man like quakes. Man like who? Yeah. Takes a Bitcoin off exchanges under self-custody. She runs her own node, providing liquidity. Yeah, she got her own keys. She got her own keys. She got her own keys. Yeah, she got her own keys. 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 Yeah, she got her own keys. Keys.